Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. Welcome to Shaq's house.
What's up, Shaq Houses? How you doing? Your boy, Shaq House. Yes! How you doing? Hope your week turned out pretty well. Mine was alright. Nothing major happened. What's it called? I know y'all didn't like my Gwenpool video all that much. I can tell by the low views compared to all my other stuff. But I know what y'all like. That's why we're going back to basics. What are we talking about? The dumbest mutant power series. Yeah, that's right. I brought back another episode of that. Part number 9. That's right. Who we got this week? Oh, you probably saw from the cover photo. But I just had an itching to do this again, just to spell out what I think are some dumb powers. Some of these aren't dumb in and of themselves, but the way they're presented and the context behind them, it just makes them overall dumb. Don't know what I mean? Check it out yourself right here.
The Puff Adder. The Puff Adder has 2 different mutant abilities. First, he has superhuman strength up to class 10, endurance, and resistance to physical injury. Second, he has the power to expand his already 6'5" frame to an even larger and more menacing size by causing the epidermis of his entire body to engorge with his blood. However, he can only remain in a fully inflated state for approximately 15 minutes at a time. He may have a third mutant ability. He can produce highly acidic chemicals from his mouth, either as a thick vapor or as a stream of corrosive liquid. It's been speculated that it comes from a pressurized container in his cowl that responds to specific muscle movements. However, in other cases, he has been seen expelling his acid without wearing any costume or headpiece. Some fun facts. He is both one of the few black men and mutants that are part of the criminally subversive Serpent Society. You know, all those criminals that have Serpent code names and costumes as part of their motifs. With his power, he puffs himself up like the snake of his code namesake. He gets stronger and larger as a result, but it's really an intimidation tactic. But why is his power so dumb? Because he causes his epidermis to engorge with his blood, which is basically the same thing that happens when you get a hard-on. Basically, the Puff Adder is a walking erection for about 15 minutes at a time. I mean, even Hope Summers knew this and clowned the dude with his own power when she got swole. Look at it right here. Next, Mr. Immortal. Mr. Immortal is reportedly a member of Homo sapiens supreme, a subspecies of Homo sapiens superior, mutants, where he is the only known example. His mutant power is post-mortem regeneration. Though his body is just as vulnerable to physical harm as any human, once his body dies, entropic forces begin to reverse themselves, repairing any injuries he suffered and undoing all the damage caused by his death, bringing him back to life in perfect health. He has been shot, stabbed, drowned, blown up, drank toxic waste, been exposed to lethal radiation, fallen off a multiple-story building, and even swallowed a grenade, and yet he keeps coming back to life. Mr. Immortal is, as his name implies, also immortal, and will not age at all as time passes. His body reverses individual cell death just as easily as total system shutdown, which has the side effect of preserving his body at its physical peak. Fun facts. He leads the Great Lakes Avengers / X-Men, and given his last name, it isn't known if he's related to fellow dumbest mutant power alumni, Razorback, whose real name is Buford Hollis. Some of you may remember Mr. Immortal from the She-Hulk series on Disney Plus last year. If Mr. Immortal is indeed on Krakoa, then he's the one mutant who'll never need the resurrection process. Also, to clarify a few things, his power is different than Moira McTaggart's. She dies, and her life, along with the timeline, reboots itself back to its beginning. Mr. Immortal is also not an external either. I mean, those are mutants who have near immortality on top of the powers that they already possess from their active X genes. So why is his power so dumb though? Because it's a curse. He's gonna outlive everyone and everything until the heat death of the universe. He's been said to be the sole survivor of the universe at its end, but we all know that's not true. I mean, anybody who knows Kang the Conqueror's history knows he who remains is the last surviving entity at the end of the universe. Next, Match. Match's mutant power is that his body constantly produces large amounts of heat energy. His body is always aglow with orange light and releasing pyroplasmic flame energy from his skull so that he resembles a matchstick. He can increase the heat his body generates at will and expel it, discharging pyrotechnic fireballs and streams of flame from his hands. He also seems to have some external pyrokinetic powers as well, allowing him to manipulate other sources of flame or absorb them harmlessly into his body. Okay, Match was one of the many students who were part of Xavier's school during the new X-Men era, and he even led the school's Paragon Squad. But he's an example of how a mutant's personality is reflected in their powers. He's a hot-tempered pyrokinetic who burned down his city's park when his power first manifested itself. He's basically Johnny Storm, a Human Torch elite. But his power is stupid because, despite being a pyrokinetic, he can't turn it off. I mean, his head is constantly on fire, like he's trying to make fun of the Ghost Rider. But hey, at least the Ghost Rider can turn off his by reverting to his human host form. If Match makes out with a girl, she'd be a burn victim by the end of the night. I mean, given his power, I'd be hot-tempered too if I was a literal hothead. Next, Centennial. Centennial's mutation includes overall increased vitality, superhuman strength, endurance, reaction time, near invulnerability, the power of flight, and the ability to project highly concentrated thermal energy beams from his eyes. Okay, Rudy Princeton, he's a black Canadian. He's what Rocky Johnson would look like if he lived to be a senior citizen. He was trained in both the Canadian military and police academy, and he was well versed in both armed and unarmed combat. His mutant abilities in and of themselves are not dumb. It's just that they didn't manifest themselves until he was 96 years old, after waking up from a 20-year-old coma. Now, most mutants, they manifest their powers at puberty, but Centennial, he may very well be the only mutant to manifest his powers at an advanced age. I mean, talk about a late bloomer. I mean, what good is finally gaining the powers of Superman so late in life? Although he did smash several chicks once he woke up from his coma and discovered his powers, so he must not be dead below the waist, clearly. He could have used these powers when he was a young cop on the loan to the Chicago police force during the days of the Prohibition. That's when he actually needed these powers. I mean, given his look, this nigga was probably the inspiration behind the Colonel Stinkmeaner character from the Boondocks. He hasn't been seen on Krakoa, but he actually died long before of old age. Just a year shy of his centennial, ironically. Next, Jack in the Box. The Jack in the Box is a mutant telepath who can read minds and mentally communicate with others. He also has a radar/danger sense that detects incoming threats. But using these powers, however, especially his radar sense, causes parts of his body to petrify and become brittle, like poorly cured cement. Though this effect is temporary, these parts often painlessly snap off and need to be reattached for the effect to fade. His mind and his head still function even if his body shatters. He's an Aborigine living in an Australian trailer park. He's a telepath who becomes temporarily brittle when using his powers. He reads a mind, his head will fall off. He projects astrally, his body might shatter to pieces. He has sex with a chick and has an erect penis, his penis might fall off. There's no harm done, it's just an inconvenience every time it happens. Jack was being utilized by the Weapon X program as a mind reader during their admissions process for captured mutants incarcerated in their Neverland concentration camp. It's unknown if Jack in the Box kept or lost his mutant powers after M-Day, but if he lost him, that's good, because at least now he won't fall apart whenever he puts his mind to something literally. Okay, Shackhousers, that's what I got for this week. I'm going to do one last entry in this dumb mutant power series, number 10, number X, and that'll be it. Or will it? I may not do it next week, or I may just do it next week, who knows, but tune in and see what I got. You have a good week, folks. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!
Yeah.